Hello and welcome to the Bottom Shelf Horror Podcast, the podcast where a couple of cheap bastards talk horror over a couple of cheap drinks. Today we are bringing you an episode where we talk about the modern slasher franchise that has shocked the world with its unique villain, its impressive effects on an extremely tight budget, and most importantly, its over-the-top, outrageous, insane kills. Today we are talking about Terrifier 1 and 2. We'll be focusing mostly on the kills, but we will be going off on tangents as well, just whenever they come up. So sit back, grab a drink if you want, and listen to us ramble.
And I guess before we dive in, we should let you know that we have a couple of drinking games for both of them. We also have some shorts on drinks that we made for the movie. Again, for our podcast, we don't really hold back on spoilers, so it's going to be very blatant spoilers from here on out, pretty much. I think that's going to be pretty much it. Also, there's going to be some disturbing content. A lot of horror movies, obviously, are kind of in it for some disturbing content. Some people anyways.
Yeah.
But Terrifier is going to be a little bit more over the top. If you're not a fan of gore, might not be the movie for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are especially going to be going into, like, the details of some of these extreme deaths. So just bear that in mind, I guess.
Yeah.
And also, there might be images to go alongside it. So just be warned, I guess.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't get censored too hard. No. But anyways, I guess we could just get into it.
Yeah. So we'll start off with Terrifier, the first one, released in 2016. And then kind of re-released and pushed forward in 2018 after it got an official distribution company or whatever to actually push it out there. So it kind of had two releases in a sense, but 2016 is the official release, I guess. Anyways, it was directed by Damien, Leone, who also wrote it, but not only did he write and direct the film, he also produced, edited, and was the lead in the special effects makeup. So he had a heavy hand in making this film, to say the least. And obviously, the main feature of Terrifier, the whole franchise, is Art the Clown, played by David Howard Thornton. And I gotta ask right out the gate, what are your thoughts on Art the Clown as a villain and how David Thornton portrays Art?
I think it's unique in one sense, and that is just the whole, I guess, body comedy, like the physical comedy that he has and portrays with that. Completely silent killer. I mean, that's nothing new with such as Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that kind of sets him apart is just his physical comedy. So he says a lot without like
verbally saying anything.
Without verbally saying anything.
Yeah.
He has to use a lot of physical, like, sort of humor, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is very unique for the time. I'll say that.
And just the way that his mannerisms are and stuff, it really works for the character and the way that Thornton portrays him. And I guess it's worth mentioning that Thornton does have professional training as a mime, which you can really come to life through Art the Clown. He has a lot of mime tendencies, I guess.
Oh, certainly.
So I think it really works well for the character, and I think he does have a unique character, even though he does have some similarities to other things, like not talking, like you mentioned. But he's unique because of, I don't know, he just seems more sadistic and stuff, especially with that smile.
Yeah.
Anyways, the first time that we're actually introduced to Art is the opening sequence where he's watching one of his surviving victims being interviewed on the little shitty TV, and she's talking about her experience to the TV show host, Monica, who's interviewing her. We see Art gearing up with his makeup and a very impressive array of weapons, which is a rule in one of our drinking games. Every time you see a new weapon, so this is why you see a ton of them. Then the scene cuts to Monica, the TV show host, talking on the phone, and she's basically just talking shit on her guest, talking about how ugly she is, and basically the victim, eventually jumps out and starts killing Monica with her bare hands. She gouges out her eyes. What else? She gouges out her eyes. And then she just leaves her there to bleed to death, basically. And this happens within the first 5 minutes of the movie. So what are your thoughts about the opening sequence? Like, do you find it effective? Was it over the top right off the beginning, or like, what are your thoughts overall, I guess, of it?
Effective just because you see like the aftermath of what he's done.
Yes.
And the one victim that he left alive is just mutilated beyond recognition.
Yeah.
So that's something that I've got to put full front and center. I guess also the trauma that she went through. Somebody basically called her ugly and she did the exact same thing, mutilated her.
Yeah, and she like, was she eating the Monica's face or something?
I'm not sure if she was eating her face.
She attacked her face.
Yeah, she definitely gouged out her eyes. I remember
it's almost kind of similar to what happened to her.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into in a bit. But yeah, I think it's a pretty effective opening sequence overall. And it's the first time we get to see Art the Clown right when the movie starts. Obviously, there's All Hallows Eve, the anthology that Damien Leone directed.
Quick off-topic question. Have you seen All Hallows Eve?
I actually haven't, and I have wanted to, but I haven't been rushing to go see it just because Art the Clown's played by a different actor, and I've heard it's not as good, but have you seen it?
I've not.
No.
It's one of those ones that I've been kind of meaning to watch.
Yeah.
I think there's 2 of them. I could be wrong.
There is.
Okay.
I don't think Art the Clown's featured in both, though.
Yeah, but I remember there was one with a babysitter, and they come back from trick-or-treating, and they get the tapes with all the anthology movies on them, and Art the Clown comes in, kills them, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that. Something along those lines. It's intriguing enough for me to actually watch for sure.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
The premise anyways.
And actually, like, the actual sequence that we see is called The Ninth Circle. That's a short that Damien Leone directed years before, and then he just included it in All Hallows Eve.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, even if you just wanted to see Art's feature, you could just search up The Ninth Circle. I don't know if it's actually very easy to find or not. Who knows?
I think a lot of Damien Leone's movies are on Tubi, actually.
Okay.
Tubi's a free streaming service.
Yeah. A lot of shit, but there's some gems.
There's some good ones.
Yeah.
They have The Witch on there.
Yeah.
That's the one I thought of the other day because we were wanting to play a drinking game for The Witch.
Right.
That's not an advertisement, by the way.
Yeah, we're not necessarily making a drinking game
eventually, probably, but
we'll eventually get to it, yeah.
Not in the near future.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, we're not going to be spending too much time talking about the entire plot of either one of these movies. So let's fast forward to the next couple of deaths that we see, which takes place at the pizza shop. Pretty iconic scene in general. The first one that occurs happens off screen. It's Steve. I think he's the owner of the pizzeria or whatever.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, he gets beheaded and made to look like a jack-o'-lantern, which we just see the aftermath. We don't see him actually get beheaded. And the second death happens immediately after, which is Ramon. I think he's just one of the employees. He went to go clean up the shit that Art made in the bathroom. And yeah, he's just one of the employees. He gets his fingers chopped off with a cleaver and then stabbed and slashed like a dozen times or more. And this is kind of the first fully fleshed out scene of the movie. Obviously, we see the opening sequence, but this is where we see Art kind of in action. So what do you think of this first scene, and does anything in this scene actually stand out to you? The way Art acts, the way that Tara and Dee react when they're in there, like any of it. What are your thoughts on this scene?
So there's 4 characters, pretty much, not including Art.
Yeah.
Tara's just immediately given red flags by Art. So immediate final girl energy.
Yep.
But I guess we're gonna get to that a little bit later.
Yes.
Dee's very, very joking about it.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, he's just a harmless little clown boy.
Doesn't take it seriously at all.
Not at all.
Not threatened. It's bizarre.
And then furthermore, the pizza guys. They seemed really nice to the girls.
Yeah.
Tara and Dee. I almost forgot their names for a minute.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were really nice to Tara and Dee, or at least the manager was anyways. The kills in general, though. The fingers getting chopped off, it's weird because dismemberment is more brutal for the only sense that, like, oh, if you survive this fight, you're gonna basically live your life without a hand.
Yeah, right.
That's one thought that I have.
Yeah, sure.
Other thought is it kind of starts to show Art's comedic side because jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah, and it's kind of a cool, intriguing, engaging way to
it's
make
unique.
you want to see what's next, right?
Yeah.
Because you get to see his head as a jack-o'-lantern. Like, oh, damn, okay, we see what he's capable of.
Yeah.
And then you see the next kill fully play out, where he's getting slashed and stabbed a million times. You see it all play out, so you're like, okay, this killer's pretty rank. Let's see what he's got in store. And that's what I take away from it too, is just you really start to see what Art is capable of. And this is in the actual first scene of the movie. So you wonder what's coming next, I guess. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Tara and Dee, you hit the nail on the head about Tara being final girl energy, and she's kind of the one that's sensible. She's like, okay, we got to get out of here. This is dangerous, blah, blah, blah. And that kind of leads me to the next tangent I want to go on, is Tara, when she has to pee, for some reason, she just decides that she's not sensible anymore and just goes into this weird-ass rundown. I don't know if it's an apartment building or what it is. Do people actually live in this building?
One person does.
Crazy.
It seems like... How do I describe it? It seems like they were just like, this is going to be a fine set. Nobody's going to question this.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think.
I don't know.
Like, there's a custodian there. What's he there for?
I don't know. He's just kind of there. He's doing rat fumigation. So like,
that's right. We see we see a custodian and the fumigator come in,
but so it's like completely like destroyed
and like
run down. Like nobody's gonna want to do anything in it besides like cook meth.
Exactly. And there's the one person that lives in there, which we'll get to. The crazy cat lady is what her character is actually called, which is weird
because she doesn't have a cat.
No cats, but
I mean, we get it.
Yeah, exactly. She's got crazy cat lady vibes, that's for sure. But anyways, we know that she's down there. Why is she down there? We don't know. She obviously must live there. I don't know how.
She lives there. She's homeless. She has clearly a mental problems, mental health. And then it's really hard to find a job with mental health problems. They affect the community a lot. So I could see the setup for it.
Yeah. I don't know. I just kind of... This whole scene where Tara goes in there, it's like, okay, why is she going in there? She's supposed to be the smart one. Secondly, what's this building? And why is there some random crazy lady living down there? It's obviously not in living condition building. So yeah, it's just a thought that came into my head while rewatching it. Obviously, the first time I watch it, I don't think of it because I'm not thinking critically of it.
Well, I think she's so in my mind, this is what I think this guy's a worker. This guy's just here to do his job. He's not here to murder me.
Yeah.
Unlike the guy who's just creepily lurking in a clown costume.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's my thoughts anyways. He's a worker. He's like, fine, I'll let you pee, whatever, I don't care, I'm getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense in my opinion that he would let her go in there and take a piss.
Yeah, but it's like that.
Why would she want to though?
I mean, where else is she gonna go on the street? She has class.
Yeah, that's right. She mentions that. Anyways.
Oh, did she actually say I have class?
Well, because she doesn't say class, but she says, I'm not like you, D, or something like that. I can't just go on the side of the road. Something like that.
Okay.
She says something like that. But anyways, it's at this location, which whatever it is, we don't know. And that's where Tara is stabbed in the ankle. Just to fast forward a bit. She gets stabbed in the ankle and drugged by Art. And she's then duct taped to a chair where she's taunted by Art, who eventually reveals right in front of Tara probably the most infamous scene in this movie.
Oh, by far.
And it's Dee hanging upside down, naked, right in front of Tara, like I said. So, yeah, it's definitely the most infamous kill for the Terrifier movie, especially the first one, arguably in the entire franchise, just because it's been out longer. Mm-hmm. But basically, the long and short of it is, we see Art grab a hacksaw and just start cutting her down the middle from her crotch all the way down to her head. He doesn't go all the way through her head.
Yeah, he does collarbone area-ish.
Yeah, and actually I think part of her head as well gets cut. But he doesn't go all the way through. I don't know if he gets distracted or something, or what.
I'm not sure if he went all the way through, or did he completely cut her in half?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
He didn't cut her all the way in half, and I'm not sure if he got distracted or why he didn't cut her all the way in half. It's just a weird choice.
I don't know. Maybe he was just like, she's dead.
Yeah, maybe. But I want to know what your initial thoughts when you saw this for the very first time, and what you thought of it. Do you think they went too far with the effects and the gore for this kill.
There's no such thing as going too far.
I gotta agree.
I mean, I don't know. I'll say that to an extent, but in my opinion, it's not going too far because it's not going to necessarily offend people in a way that's going to... If anyone's going to be mad, it's going to be like angry moms. And you're watching a horror movie, so it's kind of what you expect. If you're mad at like the Weenie Hut Jr. scenes in Saw, you should be mad at this too. Mm-hmm. But you don't really pick and choose, in my opinion. There's been much worse, in my opinion, on film.
Yes.
But the Damien Leone, I think, just kind of wanted to press the boundaries, especially for new like slasher horror. Mm-hmm. He's like, better effects, better kills, more gore.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just really wanted to push it, which he did a great job of.
For sure he did. And so, do you remember the first time you watched it? Were you shocked at all? Or were you just like, oh, I expected this because of the previous kills? Or
I didn't really expect it. I think the best word to say is that I was impressed. Yeah. Just from somebody going that far. Because I've been watching horror movies forever.
Right.
Like, ever since I was, like, basically 12 years old, 10 years old, who knows. Yeah. So, yeah, I was just impressed. I don't think I've really seen anything quite like it in cinema before.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Yeah, no, it was good for me.
Right.
Was it good for a lot of other people who watched it for the first time that we watched it with? Probably not. No, definitely not, actually.
Definitely. And that's something that, when you talk about the scene, that's kind of something that everybody thinks about is their own personal feelings towards this scene. But imagine if this was in real life. Imagine being Tara, just trapped to this chair, watching your best friend get sawed in half. And, like, what do you do in that situation as Tara? Like, what can you do anything? Like, what do you do?
The only thing you can do is, like, get the hell out of there. Like, you see, because at that point, when you know what's happening, it's already happened.
Yes.
So your best friend's kind of dead. So she does the right thing and just tries to get out of there herself.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that is what she does. She runs away, which I think is, like you say, the only thing you really can do. And it's shortly after this scene where Tara is killed. She's kind of gets into a scuffle with Art, and she gets shot in the leg, which takes her down. And then he proceeds to shoot her in the head 5 or more times. I don't know exactly the count, but it was at least 5, I know for sure. And she did die after the first shot to the head, for the record. Yeah. So Art just fully unloaded on her.
Well,
and
he came back, like shot her twice and then came back and then unloaded on her, right?
Yes, because he was out of bullets, I think. He shot her in the head, she died, and then he was out of bullets. Or no, he shot her in the leg, I think, and he was out of bullets.
Shot her in the leg and like shot her in the chest, and then she was still struggling on the ground.
Yes, she wasn't dead, and then he went and reloaded his gun, shot her in the head a bunch of times.
Yeah, just shot her a bunch of times. That's pretty much it for Tara.
Yeah, and up to this point, we expected that she was going to be
the final girl. Like, she had all, like, the... How do you say it? All of the telltale signs of a final girl.
Yeah, she's sensible. She seems to be the most, like...
The logical reason. She's making, like, relatively having relatively fine decision-making.
Other than going in that weird abandoned building. Yeah. But, like, yes, for the most part, she seems logical, like you say. Mm-hmm. And she dies. But what do you think about her death? Like, at this point, we think she's the final girl. And she just gets killed with a gunshot to the head. Do you think she deserved a better death, or do you think that death's fine for
it's fine because it flips the movie on its side completely. He's like, oh, final girl, I know what happens in every horror movie. She lives. Well, we're going to wait till the final scene to see that she's the one who's, like, has the dismembered face. And that, like, all that's just thrown out the window.
Right.
Just immediately. It's like, true. Oh, yeah, never mind.
That is true.
I guess Tara's dead. Yeah. And it just kind of sets in. It's like, we were following this girl the whole movie. Like, she had the plot in her hands, and it was just kind of, like, taken out. It's like, who else do you have to kill?
Exactly. And it almost, like, I don't know, for me, I'm not mad at the way they killed her off on this movie either, because it almost gives the viewer a break. You don't want every single kill to be over the top and full of gore, like Dee's death. You don't want every kill to be like that, because then it just gets old and boring, right?
Yeah.
Or you would think, maybe.
Also, I want to add how a lot of horror movies are just like, oh, why don't they just use a gun? It's going to be so much easier. So Art's basically on his hands and knees, almost defeated, and then just pulls out a gun and just kills her.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
What a funny clown twist.
Yeah, and meanwhile, he's laughing through this whole thing. Yeah. He laughs through the entire time, cutting D in half. He's laughing while he shoots Tara, and yeah, he's very, very sadistic, like we mentioned. Anyways, let's move on to a death that I would say is overshadowed by Dee's death. The crazy cat lady's death.
Oh, yeah.
It. I think it's overshadowed, not necessarily for any wrong reasons or anything. I just think that it doesn't get enough credit. So in the scene leading up to her death, she discovers, she being the cat lady, discovers her baby, which is just a fake doll, was taken by Art.
Her daughter, Emily.
Yes, her daughter, Emily. Not a cat.
Yeah.
But she was taken by Art, and she almost tries to nurture Art, almost like a mother figure, and go and, like, cuddle him and try and get her baby back, basically. Yeah. And it's at this point where we already knew she was crazy, but this was kind of extra insane to go up to some random bloody clown and just start nurturing him. Well, but she doesn't know any better or think anything's wrong with it, because she just thinks this guy's trying to kill her baby or whatever. Kidnap her baby.
Do you know what else I would have liked as an alternate scene for this, actually? I would have liked it if Art just killed the doll.
Like, just ripped its head off or something?
Yeah, like, ripped its head off, or just, like, started stabbing it or something like that, and just watching the crazy cat lady just like, no, my daughter! Yeah. I feel like that's something Art would do, and just Art would laugh over it. I think it'd be a perfect comedic scene, for sure.
I do think that you're right about that. That would be a really good scene. Yeah. Like, it would just add to it, right?
Yeah, it adds to the comedic aspect for sure. Yeah. Art's comedic aspect.
And just the torture to the crazy cat lady.
Yeah.
Which it cuts away from them for a minute. I don't remember where it cuts to, but it cuts back. And when it cuts back, it cuts to Victoria, Tara's sister, looking for her and stuff. And then it cuts back. They get back to the scene, and Victoria sees the crazy cat lady laying on the floor. She has her whole head scalped, and she's de-breasted. Like, her whole chest was gone.
Her whole, like, face area from, like, head
she still had her face, but it was just the top of her head, and, like, her whole hair was kept intact.
Oh, did she still have her face?
She did have her face still, and then she was just cut from, like, the neck.
Yeah.
Almost like a bust. That's what was cut off. And it's this scene that I think is arguably one of the most disturbing scenes in this movie, because, well, the way she dies isn't... She gets scalped and then she just bleeds to death. But I think the part that makes this scene disturbing is it cuts to Art, who then pops up, and he's wearing her scalp as a wig. He's wearing her breasts and just, like, taunting her and dancing while he's wearing... Like, he's wearing it over his costume, so... And he just kind of mocks her and chases Tara's sister, Vic, who we mentioned. And he's just, like, shows how psychopathic he is or something. Like, just super...
Psychopathic, comedic... It's a brutal kill, for sure. The reason that it's not really memorable, like D's, is we don't see it.
We don't see it, and I think you're right about that. I think it's I think that's why it's not or it gets overshadowed, I guess, because you don't get to visually see it. It's all implied, and I mean, you do get to see the severed flesh, I guess, when Art's wearing it, but yeah, you don't see him actually cutting it off. So I think you're right that's why it gets overshadowed by Dee's death, but I do think it deserves a little more credit than it's given, just because of how disturbing it is when you really think about how that would play out in real life if that was to happen, and you heard it, like, it would be more disturbing in a way for me to experience that. But I don't know. It's hard to say which one I would be more disturbed by if I saw in person.
Both.
Like, as in Dee's death or this one.
Yeah.
But yeah, enough about the cat lady, I guess. We'll move on to Will's death. And Will's the exterminator, fumigator, whatever. And he's just kind of a throwaway character that's there to be killed, pretty much. His death is pretty gruesome as well, not in comparison to the others, but he gets stabbed in the top of his head. And then his eyes just kind of, like, roll back real quick. Oh. And then he gets beheaded, which we see play out the entire
Will's
way.
the guy that just randomly joins and is looking for the key, right?
Yeah, he just randomly joins.
Okay.
He's looking for the key because I think he's the fumigator or the exterminator for the insects or pests or something. But yeah, he just randomly shows up. We're not introduced to him before.
Yeah.
Like, we're introduced to Mike is his name.
That's his name,
the custodian who lets Tara into the building. But this guy is just some random character that shows up. And like I said, he's just there to be killed. At this point, do you even get fazed by seeing someone beheaded and stabbed in the top of the head?
Because in horror movies, not at all.
Yeah, I mean,
it's less brutal than some of the other kills in the movie for sure. So,
yeah. Well, and that's kind of what I mean. Even if this was the first movie you watched, you've just seen someone get sawn in half. You've seen someone's head.
It's still a brutal kill.
It is brutal, but after you see some of the ones that come before it, I'm just wondering, like, does this even affect you at this point? Like, thinking of when we watched it with people.
Yeah.
Did people squirm at this point?
Not really.
Not as much as
they're still kind of scarred
scenes.
From.
Yeah, they're still trying to recover it from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the fact that it's some guy getting stabbed right through the top of the skull and then beheaded right in front of us, and we're not even that phased. Even as somebody that's like, if you're not a horror fan and you're not phased at this point, it's like, damn, that goes to show how crazy this movie actually is for a non-horror fan especially. Mm-hmm. So yeah, at this point in the movie, you kind of know what you're in for, like we said. You know how over the top the kills can be, and this is the point where we see Art torture Victoria with another new weapon of his, but before he can actually fully kill her, the custodian, which is Mike, we mentioned, who's also, I think, just there to be killed in the end, he tries to save her and proceeds to get beaten with a fumigation tank of some sort. And the way he goes out is by Art repeatedly stomping on his head until his head just fully explodes, basically. So another pretty gory death. But again, there's not a lot more to add to this death. Like, is there anything that sticks out for this death for you, or like?
Not really. I like a good old face stomp.
Yeah, it was pretty well. Like, it was really well done. The effects and everything, and like the way you see his head collapse in on itself is, again, pretty well done. I guess the weapon that he was beating Vic with was some sort of like, it was almost like a whip with scissors on it. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was,
that's what I was thinking too. It's used on Sienna in the next movie.
That's right. Yes, it is. She gets abused with that too. So it's one of his go-to weapons, I guess. So it's after Mike's death, we see this slaughter fest kind of coming to its eventual end slowly. We get to see Vic escape. Not before Art knocks her down, though, and then starts eating her face.
Yeah, honks a horn at her.
Yeah, she doesn't actually escape, but she escapes the building, but then Art basically catches up to her and eats her face. Like we said in the beginning,
yeah,
we would talk about what happened to her. She gets her face eaten by Art. And luckily for her, or I guess maybe unluckily, because she says she wants to die, this is when the cops show up and cause Art to get off Vic. And before they have any chance to really do anything, Art pulls out a handgun and shoots himself in the mouth. So, killing himself, basically. Yeah. Is this something that you suspect Art would actually do, knowing him from now 2 movies? Or is it kind of a weird choice that he makes? Like, what do you think of that?
For which one? Eating or
no.
killing himself?
I guess talk about both. Do you think he would actually start gnawing on a face, or do you think that he would shoot? Like, the main thing is, do you think he would kill himself though?
Yes, knowing that he can come back.
Yeah, because we know now that there's some sort of supernatural aspects at play. But for me, up until this point, not knowing the context of later on, it kind of surprised me that he would kill himself. I would expect him to try and do something to the cops or something, and like maybe shoot them or whatever, put up a fight. But the fact that he just like took himself out shocked me. And I guess that's what they were going for, right? They're trying to
shock value,
shock us and divert our expectations. So I guess that it worked. That's exactly what happened, at least for me, for this route that they took. But anyways, before we get the final closing scene, we get a scene where the bodies are taken to the coroner for inspection, which Art pops out of one of the body bags, because at this point we still think he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And he strangles the coroner, which happens off screen. Again, obviously a pretty tame death in comparison to a lot of the other ones that we see. Obviously, getting strangled off screen is not much. But the real purpose for this scene, I think, is just to prove that Art never actually died. Which, I mean, it's not possible, thinking that he's just a normal human, but it begs the question, like, is Art supernatural? Can he actually die? Or is he just another, like, Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees, where they just somehow inexplicably come back to life? Do you have any way of explaining how he came back?
I have one way of explaining it, actually.
Is it because of the context in the second one, or is it from the first one?
No, it's context of they know that they can milk the shit out of this movie and make sequels.
Well, okay, yeah, in the real world, that's how he comes back. But, I mean, I don't know if that is in their mind when they're making this movie, because of how indie of a film this was with such a low budget.
Yeah. And the fact that he was in other movies, he was a staple of Damien Leone's creations. I feel like
he was kind of hoping for it.
They wanted to make it supernatural in some aspect, just so he could keep up with the same character. I feel like he must know what he has with Art, or that he has something special with Art.
Right.
So he's like, I don't want to kill him off.
Actually, I guess we should say, like we talked about, we haven't seen All Hallows Eve. Maybe that provides some context and adds some supernatural aspects to Art the Clown that we don't know of. And if there is, let us know in the comments. But I just don't know of any. So that's why I'm wondering, like, how does he actually come back to life? Or are we just supposed to accept the fact?
Yeah.
And I kind of lean towards that we're just supposed to accept it and take it in for what it's worth. But it's always fun to talk about some theories, I guess. So the final thing I want to talk about in this movie, the first Terrifier, is the reveal, if you want to call it that. It's the final scene that the movie is showing us that the girl in the interview from the beginning in the opening sequence is actually Vic, Tara's sister, and we see that she's alive and well, but her face it was eaten. That's why it's all scarred up, and that's who we see talking in the first scene, and that's who kills the TV show host. So, when you saw this reveal, were you shocked by it, surprised? Was it kind of obvious? What are your thoughts on it?
In all honesty, I was just kind of in awe of the movie, so I didn't pay attention to it at all.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt about it, and I think because of all of the crazy shit that we saw up to this point, it was like, okay,
yeah,
that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, I guess, yeah.
I wasn't shocked or taken aback. I'm like, oh, yeah.
I feel like, so I wasn't surprised, I'll say.
Yes.
It was obvious, but I never guessed it for the main fact that you were too engulfed by the movie. You weren't really thinking of the mystery.
No, you didn't even think there was any sort of twist or reveal or anything like that. So why bother even watching it? Because it's just some crazy slasher movie, right?
To be fair, at first I thought it was what is it, in the past, and then it was continuing on. I didn't know it was foreshadowing. Yes.
That's what I thought too. I thought it was just something that was happening in the past, but apparently it was a flash forward scene.
Yeah,
I guess
it was a flash forward at the very beginning, which was odd.
But yeah, that's all the deaths from the first Terrifier. Before we move on to Terrifier 2, I want to know what your overall thoughts on the first Terrifier is. Is there anything that you would change? I know you talked about the one addition you would add to the Crazy Cat Lady's doll getting ripped off. Like, other than that, is there anything that you would have liked to see from the movie, or like just what your rating on it was? Any thoughts that you have on it?
I'm not sure of a rating. If I were to take something out of thin air, I'd say 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10, okay.
9 out of 10, really good. Sometimes you can see the low budget, but that's not really that noticeable. Like, the special effects for what the budget was amazing. I'll say that.
It was, for sure. And I think the part that stands out as it kind of being a cheaper movie is the way that it's filmed. It kind of has that, it almost looks old and dirty.
Yeah.
Which is by design, I think, just to try and cover up some imperfections. But that's the only thing I can really think of. There's some things that are kind of like, oh, it could have looked better, but like you got to give it credit for what it accomplished still.
Oh, definitely.
And I mean, I don't know if I have to ask this, but what is your favorite kill in the movie?
Favorite kill, I think it's got to be the upside down hacksaw scene. It takes inspiration from, where is it? Ancient Rome, I believe, like torture methods over there.
Okay,
I think it's ancient Rome, anyways.
I don't know for sure.
I could be wrong,
but that would make sense to me.
Yeah, because like hang them upside down, so all the blood flows to their head,
so they stay
alive longer.
Yeah. Which that knowing that context too makes the scene even more brutal.
Yeah.
So you're welcome if you didn't know that. But yeah, I don't know. I think we covered Terrifier 1 pretty well in terms of the death and the gore and everything and what we thought of it. So you want to move on to Terrifier 2?
Yeah. Out of curiosity first, what is your ranking?
Oh yeah, so my rating for Terrifier, the first one, I would have given it a 9 out of 10 before seeing the second one.
Okay, so
I'll give it an 8.5.
Okay.
It's a damn good movie, and I think that Terrifier 2 just kind of ups the ante a bit, and we'll get into it. My favorite kill, for the record, in Terrifier 1 is probably the cat ladies, just because of when I break it down and think of it, it'd be pretty fucking disturbing to watch some guy dance around and taunt you with your scalp and your breasts. And so when I think of it, that's the one that's most disturbing to me and like my favorite. But watching Dee get sawed in half was pretty epic too. So those are close up there for obvious reasons. But anyways, we'll move on to Terrifier 2, which, like I said, somehow cranks up the intensity and the shock factor.
Yeah, to 11.
Pretty much. So we talked about the opening sequence in the first one, and I want to compare the two opening sequences, because they have one in Terrifier 2, which is a lot longer, actually. So in Terrifier 2, it doesn't hesitate to jump right into the action. We see a guy, he goes by the name of Seth, I think. He gets absolutely bludgeoned by Art. We see him crawling for his life with his throat slit.
Is that the guy from, like, is it just continuing on for the scene in Terrifier 1? I'm pretty sure that's it.
Continuing on.
From, like, the final scene where he's in the coroner's office and then comes alive.
Oh, is it? It might be.
I'm pretty sure it is.
I don't think it's him, but that's actually an interesting point that I would want
I could have sworn it was. I could be wrong.
We'll have to look into that and see. Yeah. And just for our own curiosities. But yeah, anyways, we see him crawling for his life. He has his throat slit and he's trying to call 911 on the phone, which is pretty quickly interrupted when his head gets beaten in by some metal sort of medical mallet or something. His eye is then gouged out by Art, which he sticks into his own eye socket.
Oh, and like replenishes his
basically
own
just
eye?
like, yeah, he puts his own eye, or he replaces his own eye with this guy's eye, and he's very giddy about it. He's like laughing and just like smiling about it, dancing around with this eye in his face. Again, just taunting the victim like he is known to do. But if that wasn't enough, Art literally grabs the guy's beaten in skull and just cracks it apart and rips his head apart. Yeah. Basically just ripping it in half. And we get to see all of this play out, by the way. Nothing's left up to the imagination. Nothing's implied. It's all right in front of our eyes. And then after that, it cuts to Art going to a laundromat where we eventually see him maniacally and silently laughing at a newspaper article showing that 4 people died in a gruesome car crash. I think it's just there to show, again, how sadistic he is, how much pleasure he gets out of seeing harm done to people. It's just something to build his character more, I guess. And it's while he's laughing at this car crash that he's interrupted by a power outage or something. And that's when he looks around the corner and sees this pale little clown girl. And she's just sitting there staring at him, wide open eyes, smiling. And that's that's the first time she's introduced as a character. It's right in the opening scene. And after that, Art plays with the girl. He gets cleaned up, and then we see the aftermath of the other death in the opening sequence, which we see Art killed the other customer that was just in the laundromat by breaking a mop handle and sticking it into his head, like stabbing him in the brain, basically. We don't see the death in action. We just see the aftermath, like I said. But it's also worth noting that this customer was not able to see the pale little girl.
Yeah.
And we don't know why that is at this point. So there's a lot to take in this opening sequence, and it brings up a lot of questions that I want to ask. First, when you compare the opening sequence from the first Terrifier and the second one, which one do you enjoy more?
Which one do I enjoy more?
The first sequence where we see Monica interviewing Victoria with her face all messed up, or this one with the over-the-top
Both
kills?
of them are completely acceptable answers. Mine is the first one for the main fact that you can see the impact on what Art does without actually revealing what Art does, kind of. You see a destroyed face, and you see how Victoria becomes like mentally unhinged for the most part because of the PTSD that she suffered from Art.
Right.
So that's mine.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. For me, I don't know which one. You're right. I don't know which one I enjoy more, though, because after watching the first one, Art's this crazy killer. So if they went the more mysterious route, we're not seeing him in action, that we might be like, oh, this is starting out a little weak. So I think they had to go balls to the wall with this opening sequence, which I think they did, and it kept me engaged right away. We're like, oh, we see Art put an eye into his socket that's somebody else's. That's fucked up. We see him like stab this guy, slit his throat, whatever.
Oh yeah, no, he brutalizes the guy, like, and that's exactly what we came to see Terrifier 2 do.
Exactly.
2 for, because Terrifier 1, it's not going to have the exact same impact if you do the exact same thing, because you know what Art does, you know what Art's about now.
Yeah, exactly.
But going into the first movie, I think it's perfect. Going into the second movie, this is exactly what I expected, so it delivered.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess the one thing that it did add that you're like, okay, this is interesting, I want to see where they go with this, is the little girl. And like, why is she here now? Is this some figment of Art's imagination? What is it? But I guess we'll go into that right now. Is what are your thoughts on the introduction of the pale girl as a character? And is she supernatural in some way? Is she a figment of Art's imagination, like I asked? She can be seen by some people and not by others. And I want to hear what you think the explanation for that is. Like, Jonathan and Sienna both see her, but this guy at the laundromat doesn't. And what's the reasoning? Also, what do you think of her as a character?
So here's my guess. Like, she doesn't really add anything as a character.
Not really.
She's obviously supernatural in a sense, but she does exist in some plane anyways, because Sienna, I'm not sure if Jonathan, but definitely Sienna sees her.
Jonathan does see her, because when he's in the school, Art is in there playing with the dead possum, throwing it back and forth, and it's...
Oh yeah, I guess it would look weird if it wasn't him throwing like a dead possum back and forth by himself. So
like, we don't see it from his perspective. We don't see Art just playing with nobody like we did in the laundromat. We see from Jonathan's perspective, and he sees both of them there, and he gets freaked out by them. I guess. Okay. But yeah, they do both see him, Sienna and Jonathan.
Maybe it has a link to do with her dad. However, one more thing that I'll add is, does Art control his victims in a way? Because it was said that the little girl was the first kill that he ever did in like the fun house, the Terrifier, whatever it's called. Going on to the other survivor that he has, Victoria. Victoria is now under his control, as we see later on in the movie.
Yes.
So I think it's connected in that sense, where if Art murders you, brutalizes you, eats you, something along those lines.
Yeah, there must be something like that. Maybe he can control you. That's my own theory. I mean, it has a bunch of holes in it, but
I mean, it's a theory. A theory's a theory's a theory.
And I don't think you're necessarily wrong in what you're saying either, because like you said, in the end we see, so near the end we see the pale girl's eyes turn like orangish or whatever, and then end credits, after credit scene, which we'll talk about later, we see Victoria's eyes that same color, and it's like, okay, they're clearly there's
Victoria's eyes.
Eye.
Oh yeah, okay.
One eye.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, we do see her eye turn orange, and yeah, there's clearly a connection implied there. So I guess it's up to us to try and figure that out as to what it is. Who knows if they'll expand on that further in the third one, which already is confirmed in the making, released next year.
For some reason, I think that Damien Leone stated that he wanted to get more into like the lore of Art the Clown. So we'll see where that goes.
Origin story almost.
Yeah, kind of origins here.
Yeah, I mean, either way, I'm not going to be upset in the direction they take just because of the way the movie.
Yeah, we know how it's going to get delivered.
Yes, exactly. So, anyways, like the first one, we're not going to go into too much of the plot and like the plot lines connecting everything. We're just going to mostly talk about the kills, with going on tangents again. But the one thing I want to touch on is we mentioned Jonathan is Sienna's brother. He wants to dress up as Miles County Clown Killer for Halloween, which obviously is Art the Clown. Do you think that this kid's fucked in the head for wanting to dress up some crazy killer that's just been on the loose like a year prior
ago?
Or do you think this is just normal behavior, a kid wanting to be edgy?
I think it's normal behavior of wanting to be edgy in like the worst way, where he should definitely have repercussions for doing that for sure.
Yeah. And
it's like if a child showed up at school like dressing like a Nazi. Yeah. Like realistically, you can do whatever you want, but like it's to a point where I get it, you're a child, but you shouldn't encourage this for children.
Yeah,
like at all.
You should kind of be sensitive to the fact that it literally just happened a year ago, and it's like, okay, too soon. Sure, he has a cool aesthetic, and you want to be scary, but yeah, it's a little bit much. Yeah, it's a little much and too soon. Maybe wait 10 years or 20 years or something. But yeah, it's just a side point I thought of when I was watching it. It's like this kid, and he's even portrayed that way to be a potential going down that
serial killer.
Yeah, going down that route because he gets in trouble for that possum we mentioned.
Yeah, not his fault.
Not his fault, but it looks like it's his fault due to the principal and shit catching him, but
he should have just went as a giraffe.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of the principal, do you know who was played by?
Yes. Angela, what's her name? Felicia Rose.
Yeah. It was something with an F and then Rose.
I think it's Felicia Rose.
Felicia Rose.
Or Felissa. I don't remember. But yes.
Yeah.
I didn't catch it the first time we watched it though, to be honest.
I didn't either. Yeah.
But yeah, rewatch.
Well, maybe I did. Like she has such a like recognizable face.
She is very recognizable, and I knew of her.
I'm pretty sure my fiance caught that actually. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that. It was a nice little.
It was a neat little like horror
for a horror fan, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah. Anyways, let's continue to the next bunch of kills in this movie. It happens in a dream sequence that Sienna is having, or at least it's led to believe it's a dream sequence because she wakes up. But anyway, she's dreaming about the clown cafe where Art makes a special appearance, and it's in this scene that we see Art give Sienna a box that has a still beating human heart full of like worms, maggots, and a bunch of black goo and whatever, it like bubbles up. But then Art proceeds to gun down the entire group of people on this set. I think it's a set. It looks like it's almost like a movie or something. It doesn't look like a real cafe. But the staff, actors, everybody gets gunned down, but except Sienna. She's left alive. We see some kid eating like razor blades, Art Krispies. Yeah. It's just razor blades. Art then sets everything on fire. And I guess my question about this whole dream sequence is, why is Sienna dreaming up this extremely vivid and accurate representation of Art killing? Like, has she ever seen Art in real life? And this is the point where, like, is the sword from her father somehow connecting her to another dream world? Because we see Art lighting everything on fire, and then when she wakes up, her sword bursts into flames, or like the curtain or something by the sword, whatever it is, and almost burns down her fucking room. But like, how is she able to see this?
Yeah, I'm not sure. So there is a connection between Sienna and Art, and the reason that I say that is because like the dad basically predicted it. The dad knew that Sienna was going to kill Art in that costume and this and that.
Right. We see him even draw what Art looks like in his sketchbook or whatever, and the costume she wore. Yeah, exactly. And clearly they're like, did he have powers, the dad, that just kind of like genetically went down to his kids? That's why they can see the little girl too? Or like, it's again just some of the supernatural shit going on that makes you question like how, when you stop and think like, how is it actually happening?
Yeah, it's vague.
Yeah. I don't know. It just makes me wonder. But I guess it leads to the question, are you happy or upset or you're indifferent with the supernatural aspects being introduced to Terrifier as a franchise?
Dude, Terrifier as a franchise, I mean, if it's delivering on the thing that I want, which is kills, Art, shooting people up, yeah, it's fine. I didn't mind the whole clown cafe. I think it was...
I like the scene for sure.
I like the scene. It's a catchy little tune. Still stuck in my head till this day. Yeah. But for the most part, I don't mind it because they're doing it well, and I'm not really in it for
the story.
For the story as much. Yeah. I mean, we'll see where the third one goes here. How are they gonna wrap all this in a nice little bow?
Yeah,
I think they're just gonna finish the wrapping paper, and they're probably gonna realize, there's not gonna be a bow going on this. I'm like, you have a nicely wrapped present. Take it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they do with the third one too. But I agree. I'm just watching Terrifier for like the brutality and the shock value, and trying to go see the over the top kills they do. Mm-hmm. And the story, like when I first watched this, I didn't pay attention to the story at all. I was just watching it for fun, and I had a fucking lot of fun, especially with the crowd we were watching with. But yeah, when I watched it the second time I watched it, trying to pay more attention to the story, and it just brought up these questions like, how is this supernatural part working? Like, it's easy to poke holes through, I guess.
Oh yeah.
And that's all. But it doesn't diminish the experience for me at all, so I'm not mad at it. But anyways, let's move on to the next kill, which it comes in the Halloween store. We see Art taunting and messing with Sienna, as we see him taunting and messing with people so much up to this point in the first one and this one. But she's just trying to buy Halloween more merch. And Ricky, he's the store employee, he steps in and stops Art from, I guess, abusing Sienna. Tries to put a stop to that. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes he's ever made in his life, because after Sienna leaves the store...
the last mistake he's ever made in his life.
It is the last, you're right. After Sienna leaves the store, Art proceeds to break a beer bottle on his head, use the broken beer bottle to stab him in the eye, or around the eye, whatever. And then we see him squirming on the ground. Art takes a rusty cleaver, chops it into Ricky's skull, and it's now at this point Ricky's dead, but Art's not done. He then takes the cleaver and messily decapitates Ricky. Just hacks away at his neck, which is another pretty gruesome scene that we see play out. There's not a whole lot to add on to this kill. It's just a random character that gets killed off. And I think it's just another gruesome kill to add to the list.
Mm-hmm. It's still a great gruesome kill for sure.
It is a great gruesome kill. And I want to, like, at this point of the movie, we're still not at the craziest part of the movie. But do you find yourself, because you've seen so much crazy shit at this point from the first one and the second one, you see so many over-the-top kills, you see a bunch of gross ass, putting the eye in a socket, stuff like that that's meant to shock you. Do you still find these over-the-top kills appealing or charming, like, or does the shock wear off eventually? Like, what is your thoughts on that?
To be honest, it doesn't really wear off.
No.
If it's done right and effectively and is shocking and brutal enough, I think it still has a great effect, which is exactly what that kill was.
Right.
The brutality isn't over even after he dies. He still chops off his head messily.
Yeah.
And then typical Art fashion, he's trying to stand there as like a figurine, and he like winks at the kid.
Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, when he's holding his head. Yeah, that was funny. And I totally agree with you that the shock value doesn't really wear off, because I don't know, it's just crazy, and it's done well. It's executed well.
The main thing that I think of is each kill isn't the same. So, for example, if Art the Clown's thing was just sawing people in half, eventually I'd get bored of it.
That would get old.
It would get old really quick.
It's right.
However, he's finding unique ways to kill people. So Damien Leone's just kind of like really stretching the boundaries of how you can kill somebody with Art the Clown.
That's right. And I guess that segues right into this perfectly, which we'll talk about the next kill. If you watching said that you were kind of, the shock factor was wearing out for you, it's at this point that Terrifier 2 brings the punches, which is with its next kill. I would say this kill is comparable, sure. Comparable to the Saw scene from Terrifier 1. It's probably the most famous kill in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of equivalent in that sense. So it's during this scene that we see Allie, who is one of Sienna's friends. We see her in the Halloween store. She's one of Sienna's friends. She gets completely mutilated and tortured for not giving Art candy when he's trick-or-treating, going door to door or whatever. We see him come to her door.
If only she gave him candy.
If only she gave him candy, yes.
If I see an adult at my door and they want candy, I'll be like, sure, I don't know what they're doing with their lives.
Yeah.
He's in costume and everything. I'd give him a thumbs up for effort. You were into Snickers.
She even says that he's got a cool costume. But anyway, she doesn't give him candy. Biggest mistake of her life again. But Art breaks in, has a glass of water, as somebody does, before slicing someone in the face down their eye. Right down the middle.
There's a lot of eye things.
There's a lot of eye things. And that makes people squirm. I think it's by design because a lot of people don't like touching of the eyeball and stuff. So I get why they do that. But after that, he proceeds to scalp her with a pair of scissors. Just cutting her fucking scalp off is pretty rough to watch. And then he pushes her on the bed, where he then carves into the back of her, carves and stabs her back, I guess. Many times. He kind of even peels the skin back a little bit. But that's only half of it. He continues on to snap one of her arms and then completely amputate it. So he wiggles it and then just rips it off. Brutal right there. And then he moves on to her second arm and somehow rips it down the middle. So he grabs the two fingers on each side and just rips it apart.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
That's again first of all, how the fuck do you do that? I don't think it's possible. But second of all, gross. It looks brutal. You're still going through all this crazy shit and you just rip the arm in half. After that, he then slashes her several more times before he leaves the room. And she's still living at this point.
Yeah, you see her kind of squirming there, and it's everyone's kind of thinking, the elephant in the room is is he done? Is that it?
Well, you're kind of led to believe that
doesn't he just done. Casually walk out?
Yeah, he runs out of the room at this point.
I thought it was he casually just
does eventually
out. I remember he runs back in.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Either way, he leaves the room. And then he comes back carrying bleach and salt. And you're like, oh, fuck. Okay, he's not done, clearly.
Yeah.
But he pours bleach on her, rubs salt in the wounds, pours salt all over her wounds. And that would be fucking brutal.
Your entire body.
Just burning on fire.
Speaking of which, I actually don't know. I'm assuming bleach hurts in wounds too, right?
I can only imagine. Holy fuck, that would burn.
Yeah, no, I just don't know.
I mean, I've never experienced it, but I can only imagine what it's like. Because even if you get bleach on your skin regularly, you're not supposed to get bleach on your regular skin.
I guess I didn't think about that.
So yeah, if you get bleach on wounds, that would fuck you up.
Yeah.
But anyways, he pours it all over her wounds, and then the movie cuts away for some time, again leading you to believe that he's kind of done with her. Mm-hmm. How much worse can it really get, right? But it does get worse. Allie's mom comes home, discovers Allie sitting in the bed with Art, and he continued to carve and slice, stab, mutilate, torture, and even amputate more of her body off screen. And so when it cuts back, you see how much more her body is just fucked up, and then her mom walks in and oh damn, it just gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
So now we painted this picture of how the scene plays out. I want to know what you think of this kill in general and what your first impression was.
Yeah, I guess wrapping it up, the mom sits up, and like I can only imagine how terrifying that would be to see
Jesus
your
Christ.
child just getting mutilated.
But not even dead yet. She's still living when you see her.
And then she's still alive.
Like, fuck, we don't even know that she actually died.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's implied, obviously.
It's
You
implied.
can't survive it, but...
Yeah.
Ugh.
Gonna die of blood loss eventually. I don't know.
Absolutely.
But anyways, was it too much? Nothing's ever too much.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if you watch the first one, you know what you're signing up for.
You should know at least.
Yeah.
But a lot of people we watched it with were...
shocked.
Oh, they were squirming at the scene.
There was some people that didn't see the first one, and they just went into the second one.
That's true.
Some people came to watch the second because they watched the first.
Yeah. Yeah. This was one of the better turnouts we ever had at a movie night, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And happily, it was also just a spur of the moment thing. We decided to watch it after a live stream one day.
Was it after a live stream?
I think so. We live streamed pretty early, and then we had people come over. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
Or we were recording. One or the other.
I don't know.
It was one or the other for sure. But yeah, it was just kind of a spur of the moment thing that had a great turnout. And it was fantastic. And this scene helped make it fantastic.
Definitely. Yeah, it was definitely one of the better scenes in the movie. Brutal as all hell.
Yes.
Again, pushing the boundaries of what you can do as far as kills go on screen in horror movies.
And you think you've seen it all as a horror fan. You see, like, you know, there's some pretty torturous kill scenes out there, but like this one, maybe there is more torturous out there. I'm not saying that this is the most.
There
sure
probably
there
is. Yeah. There's probably much worse.
Absolutely.
But I think it's at that point where it's just snuff films, and I kind of don't want to go down that path.
No, exactly. And I don't know how they could get much more crazy, but they'll find a way, I'm sure. They'll find a way to shock us in the third one, too. Mm-hmm. But you did mention at the beginning how we have drinking games and made a couple drinks for Terrifier, and this is the point that I wanted to bring up. At least my drink is based on this scene specifically. It's Art's most painful drink, because we think this is probably his most painful death, because she doesn't even die through all of this, so she's going through some hell. And yeah, if you want to watch that video, just click up here, go up here
somewhere.
I gotta see where I'm at. There we are. Click up here, I think, or go to the description, or go to our channel, whatever, find it somewhere if you want to find out how to make that drink.
It's out there.
What's your drink for Terrifier?
Oh yeah, mine's kind of based loosely on the Clown Cafe. It has Art's color in it, so it's, what did I even end up calling it? I think it was the Clown Cafe Special. I think that was it.
That sounds right. Yeah, basically you made you used
lots of coffee, layered it.
Yeah, it's like dark, almost black color, white, and grenadine red for some blood.
Yeah.
So that kind of represented Art's aesthetic and his colors, his costume, and all the blood. So yeah, go check those two drinks out if you want to know how to make them. But anyways, back on topic. We've now covered the most horrific death of the movie, probably maybe of the franchise, depending on how you look at it. I would say of the franchise, the most gruesome so far.
Yeah.
But let's just quickly brush over the next couple of deaths that sort of seem tame in comparison. The first one occurs off screen, which is Allie's mom. Allie, we just saw get really fucked up. She is decapitated and then used as a Halloween treat bucket, and we see we don't see her get beheaded. It's just we see him come to the door with her head as the bucket for candy for trick-or-treaters. So we see that, obviously telling us that she's dead, which I wouldn't want to live if I was her anyways. So I guess good thing that she died in a sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the second death that I want to just go through is Sienna's mom, Barbara.
I should also mention another funny Art scene in that, where he's like offering the children like all one candy. It's like, oh, cool costume, mister. And then the one kid tries to take like 3 candies, like slaps his away his hand. It's like one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And there's a lot of that sprinkled throughout both movies. This is comedic mannerisms and stuff. And it just adds to the character, I think. But yeah, Sienna's mom, Barbara, she gets her head blown off by a sawed-off shotgun. She's led to believe that it is Jonathan that's kind of fucking...
Well, so I guess more context is her and Jonathan have been basically butting heads all day.
Yes.
Jonathan called her a bitch. She slapped him, ran out of the house. And then Jonathan, like, she went to the vehicle and her vehicle was just vandalized, like pumpkins thrown on it, shaving cream and everything.
Bitch in the shaving cream, which is why she believes it was Jonathan.
Well, she probably would have believed it was Jonathan regardless.
Either way, but that just kind of sets it in stone for her. And, I mean, fair enough, I would be the exact same way. But basically, the car's all fogged up, and we see Art then... I don't know, does he roll the window down or just clear the window?
I think she's cleaning the window.
Yeah.
She's cleaning the window and sees Art.
Right, that's what it is. And he just kind of appears and she freaks out and he pulls out the shotgun, shoots her in the head, which blows her head off.
Yeah.
And it, like, hits the wall or whatever behind her. And it's kind of surprising to say that this is a tame kill.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like your head got blown off. And we saw it play out
It's
entirely.
also the quickest kill of the movie, probably. If you
I
were
think
going to die, it's probably going to be shot in the face with the shotgun. Like,
yeah, I think so. And especially if it blew your entire fucking head off your body. So, almost like an instant death and you wouldn't know any better. But I think it just goes to show that, again, these kills, they just pile up to prove that Art is this sadistic maniac that gets pleasure out of torturing and killing people. And it's shown with... It's all just a fun game for him because he uses the head as the trick-or-treat bucket or whatever. And, like, you know, we see him laughing the whole time like we talked about.
yeah, well, we see him afterwards with the mom, just, like, dressed up in, like, his full, like, cookware.
Yes.
Like the chef's hat and the apron and everything. And just forces mashed potatoes down her what's left of a head.
That's right. Yes, that's a pretty brutal scene again, too.
And then Jonathan, that's when Jonathan comes in, he's just, like, mortified.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't be? But, yeah, before we move on to the next death in the movie, we talked about, like, Art and how he's acting and stuff. Do you think he acts differently in Terrifier 2? Do you think he acts the same? Do you think that they improved or, like, made his character grow a bit? Or do you think, like... I'm just curious on your thoughts of Art from Terrifier 2 and Terrifier 1.
So he acts the same, but they really buckled down on kind of getting his character across with, like, the whole physical comedy. They did that a lot better in this movie.
Yeah, that's what I think too. Like you said, I think he's the same character. They just executed it
executed it better, yeah.
And, like, David Howard Thornton just, like, completely... It developed this character into, like, his own thing, and it really kind of took its full form in Terrifier 2 and cemented Art as a villain, and I think as a horror icon at this point, even with only 2 movies that the second one came out recently. Usually it takes a whole franchise with, like, several movies before a villain gets cemented as an icon, but I think this one cemented him as an icon.
Oh, definitely.
And I don't necessarily like him better in one or the other, but I think it was just executed better, like we said. But let's move on to I would say probably the most comedic death of the film, and we'll call this just the tip kill. So basically, we see Sienna's friend's boyfriend. His name is Jeff, apparently. I don't know if it's ever said or not, but anyways,
I think they introduce each other. Like, maybe. Right at the beginning. It's like, oh, this is Jeff.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
I think so. I think they're introduced.
Yeah, and Sienna's friend's name is Brooke, that's dating Jeff. But anyways, he gets his dick stabbed, like, 10 times, at least. And then he gets it ripped off, and the dick is just smeared on the window. And I think the most comedic aspect of this scene is Jeff is wearing a shirt that just says, just the tip. And it just, like, kind of adds on to the comedy that we see sprinkled throughout the movie. And on the topic of comedy, we had a drinking rule in the first Terrifier that said anytime Art does something comedic, we take a sip. But we removed that rule for the second Terrifier drinking game. And I'm just wondering, do you think that Terrifier 2 has less instances of Art being comedic? Or do you think that it's kind of just overshadowed by the gore? Or do you just think we had better rules that worked
think we
better
just
for the
had
movie.
better rules that were more comedic. I mean, to be fair, I think this rule would have worked in it fairly well, because I do think that there was more of Art being comedic in the movie. I will say that, as we even mentioned,
Yes.
that we think that it was done a lot better in the movie, and they just kind of upped the ante, buckled down on making Art a lot more comedic.
Yes, I agree. And I think, yeah, we did ultimately just have better rules. But I do think that sometimes when you're watching this movie, like if we went and talked to one of our friends that were watching with us, and we talked about like the comedy parts of Terrifier, if they would be like talking about the funny parts, like what we're talking about, like what would come to mind for them. And like it makes me wonder, is it overshadowed by the gore in some instances?
I'm pretty sure when people leave Terrifier, they're not thinking of the comedic bits. They're thinking of the gore.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something I actually like about Art the Clown as a character, because it's not in your face with the comedy. It's just sprinkled in, and it's just how he acts. He's not trying to be funny. He just is comedic, I guess, naturally.
Oh yeah, no, he's definitely naturally comedic for the most part. It makes him a unique character.
Yes, exactly.
That's the main thing.
And I think that's why I like it, the way that they sprinkle the comedy in. But anyways, moving on from that, just the tip kill. Shortly after Jeff gets his penis ripped off, we watch Art the Clown kill Sienna's friend Brooke, which is Jeff's girlfriend we talked about. He does this by pouring hydrochloric acid on her face, causing her to burn and melt. Basically, her face starts blistering and bubbling. And then he hits her in the back 3 times with his homemade wooden mallet. It's got like nails and forks and knives and everything like just like somehow embedded into
it. It's like a bedpost, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, I think that's what it is. And yeah, it's just some homemade crazy weapon. But he whacks her with that a few times in the back. And then what does he do? He whacks her in the leg, causing her leg to be like half severed, I guess. And then before he rips, he whacks her in the chest several times, causing her chest to like collapse fully.
Yeah.
And that's when he rips chest's, what do you call it? Her chest open.
Cavity open.
Yeah, her rib cage, her chest, whatever. He rips it open and pulls out her heart and starts eating it. Again, pretty brutal death. And I'm wondering if you kind of think about this kill in relation to the first one. Do you think of it kind of like the crazy cat lady's kill, in the sense that it might be overshadowed by Allie's death, which is crazy, over the top, can't get much worse? Do you think of this kill like that?
I'm just trying to think. I don't know. I think that there was a lot more other brutal kills in the movie. Like, sure, you could call it like the second worst. Like, the acid's pretty bad.
And just like the way that he rips open her chest and starts eating her heart. I don't know. For me, I kind of treat this one as a way that it's kind of similar to that cat lady, just in like it kind of is overshadowed. It's still super effective, but I just kind of hold it in that regard. As in my personal opinion, I would kind of compare it to the cat lady's death from the first one.
Yeah, I guess you could see it from that perspective, especially like ripping somebody's heart out, eating it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And just like seeing her chest get caved in with this crazy weapon, and yeah, I don't know. That's just the way I think of this death. And it's like, you could pick several deaths in this movie that I think would be your second kill that's the most gruesome.
Oh, 100%.
I think the first one
is probably set in stone.
Undeniable. The bleach and salt kill or whatever, but I think there's several other deaths that you could pick as the second most gruesome. It's all kind of what you
personal
get out of it. Yeah, your own opinion and how it affects you personally, I guess. And there might be somebody out there that thinks one death is worse than the bleach and salt death, just based on how their own experiences. But I think for us, it's undeniable. But anyways, we did touch on the supernatural aspects of this movie that were introduced already, and it's sprinkled throughout most of the movie. But I think it's at this point that the supernatural stuff really picks up. Sienna is killed by Art, who uses the supernatural sword.
She uses the supernatural sword to kill him because that's the only thing that can kill him or something like that.
Well, I think he killed her with the sword too.
Oh, yeah.
And then she's revived somehow. We see a whole sequence play out, and then she comes back to life, and then she proceeds to stab and slice Art's throat with that sword as well. And eventually she hacks away at him until he's just decapitated. And then Art is revived as a sentient head, which we see in the after credits scene where Victoria from the first Terrifier is shown giving birth to his head. So again, just going back on the supernatural part of this, do you have any theories or explanations that makes this sequence of events make sense? How does Sienna come back to life? How does Art as a severed head get put into Victoria's stomach and give birth to? What's up with the orange eyes? Like, are we supposed to just accept it?
At this point, we're just supposed to accept it. The only theory that I have with the sword is supernatural. Dad knew something. Maybe the dad was supernatural himself.
Yeah. That's something the only explanation, I think.
Yeah, something along those lines. Everything's very vague, and we'll see if it gets all wrapped up in the third one.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I think it's definitely ought to be something to do with the sword, but also the little girl. Because that's another thing in the scene where Sienna and Art are fighting and killing each other and coming back to life and whatever. The little girl is there, and she has the glowing orange eyes. And, does she bring back Sienna to life somehow? Or does, how does... I don't know. It's, again, just something that you gotta, I think, just accept, like you said. And we're not meant to ask questions, but I want to ask questions because
I'm
it
one of
doesn't
those
make
guys,
sense.
yeah.
But, again, it's not something that takes me away from my enjoyment of this movie. So it's weird in that sense. But on the topic of Art being revived as a sentient head, how do you think they proceed with Terrifier 2? Do they start off with Art being a head, continuing where the movie left off?
No, I got it. So
Okay.
what's going to happen is some guy's going to come into the asylum, and then Victoria's going to kill him and rip off his head, and then we're just going to place Art's head
as his
back on it. It's going to be like the eye. I feel like that's the only realistic place.
Unless they do the origin story like you were talking about earlier. That is right.
Because how else does he get another body? He's just a head right now. He's not gonna have a tiny little.
Is it
body
like Deadpool?
Yeah,
his tiny little limbs growing around.
Yeah,
that'd be kind of funny. Not appropriate, I don't think, for Terrifier.
Yeah,
but
I think it'd be a little bit too slapstick.
Comedic. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'm interested to see how they continue on with the third one. But before we wrap up this episode, I guess, what are your overall thoughts on Terrifier 2? How does it compare to the original one? Give me any of your thoughts.
Terrifier 2 is better than Terrifier 1. As for ratings, I think it's going to stay the same for me as we did our top movies of 2022 in January.
Right.
I think it's staying the exact same. I think I gave it a 9.3, and I'm going to stick with that.
Okay.
It's 9.3, 9.2, but I think 9.3 is a fair rating.
Yep.
You could even argue bumping it up. It's still one of the most memorable movies or franchises at this point.
Too.
Yeah.
And I do agree with you. I don't think... I would give it a 9, maybe 9.5, but I can't give it a perfect 10 simply for the questions with the supernatural aspects that make me if it makes me ask questions like that, then I can't give it a perfect 10. You know what I mean? Perfect 10 has to be best movie experience possible, as well as a perfect film without any plot holes, which this was a fantastic movie experience, but there's some plot holes I can point out. So that's why it's not a 10 out of 10, I guess. Which I don't know. I don't know what movie I'd give a 10 out of 10. To be honest, I would have to think on that for quite some time. But is there anything else about the franchise as a whole that you want to add? Art the Clown, Damien Leone. Give me any. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap?
Any final thoughts? Nothing really comes to mind too much. Again, I'm excited for Terrifier 3. I wonder what direction it's going to go in. I hope they add some more in the backstory. I'm kind of curious how it's going to go with Sienna and Jonathan. If they're just going to be still horrified
Yeah.
and traumatized from the past night's events and how that's going to transpire.
Yeah.
So I'm curious on that.
Me too. And I'm pretty sure we know for a fact that Sienna is returning. I don't know for sure about Jonathan. I'm pretty sure I read that Sienna is returning.
Yeah,
as a
I
character.
could have sworn I heard that too somewhere.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident in that. Again, I don't know about Jonathan, but I'm interested to see where they go with that. And knowing that she is returning as a character, it makes you wonder where they go and how they proceed because of the head. But yeah, I'm curious to find out. In the meantime, I guess we have some more videos coming out. We have, what do we got next? Insidious, the franchise, with the new one coming out that just got released, a few weeks ago?
I think a couple weeks at this point.
Weeks ago.
Maybe even 3 weeks ago at this point. It's been a while.
Yeah. But we're making a drinking game for every Insidious, including the new one, and making a couple drinks for that. We'll probably do a podcast episode on that too, ranking it, or who knows what route we'll take for that. But with all that being said, we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Bottom Shelf Horror Podcast. It seems like this one's probably a little bit longer, so if you made it all the way to the end of this episode, first of all, thank you. Thank you for hanging in this whole time. Secondly, let us know what your thoughts of Terrifier as a franchise is. Tell us what you think of the first one, the second one, how they compare. Anything you want to let us know about, let us know in the comments. And also if you're excited for the third one. Anyways, that wraps up another episode for now, and this is us saying, cheers to fears.